This is the second time that this has happened, like in a year, where I mistook a conversation meaning, and I'm so used to like if somebody's gonna make the trip that we're gonna like document it.
Yeah, listen, I'm like happy to do that, but I just want you to know, like, I don't need to, because I just genuinely like you,
dude. I
think you're a cool, fun hang.
Hey, I genuinely love you.
Oh, dude.
So.
You love me?
I love you.
Dude, I fucking love you.
It's funny you should say that.
Whoa.
Because I love you.
Okay. Let me... What? You love me?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. I love you.
Okay. I know we've been joking around, but I just want to say I love you.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to take that in. I'm going to sit with it for a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can reproduce tears.
Let it marinate. That's how you produce tears.
Yeah, you got to look up. And then you go... And then someone would say, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
All right, the audio wasn't on for that one. Sorry, sound guy was...
Oh, hang on. Now I can do it again. There's a small tear. I don't know why I looked at the microphone like, you see it? All I can think of is "Va te faire cool," which means go fuck yourself.
So the way that I do this is I give like just a tiny little intro.
Okay.
And then we'll get going with the Q's and the A's.
The T's and the P's.
The cocks and the apples.
The toilets and the poopers.
Feed Our Congress. That's my new charity that I'm starting up.
Fuck. Gotta feed them, guys. They're only making $180,000 a year and free healthcare for life. So we gotta feed them. Not if you're duct taped together. Conjoined Congress?
That sounds like a TV show. Conjoined Congressman?
Conjoined Grisman?
My computer's broke. I don't know how it broke. Like, oh. It's a lot of...
Is it one of those sexy babysitter cams?
No, it's just got a really bad microphone on it. All right. For real, I'm doing the intro this time.
Fine. Okay, I'll shut up.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I'm excited to have this individual on. They are one of the most talked about fellow comedians on all of the podcasts I've ever done. There's always some way to tie him in through the life experience or just how our minds are very... much an equal amount of Chemical Imbalance and Monty Python. And I'm happy that he's here this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Mattfield.
Hello, I'm a Cancer, and at some point you all will have me or have experienced me.
Hey, man.
Hello.
I'm excited that you're here.
I want to do like that, every now and then you like listen to an NPR podcast. They talk with like a smooth voice where they talk out the front of their mouth, but it also sounds like there's leather in there somehow.
I mean, they all have coffee breath for sure.
Oh, definitely. We've all had our cups of coffee. We've sat down. We've had our morning poops, and we're just ready to just chat.
Yeah. Andy?
Yes.
Andy.
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 Yeah, it's longer on the Y. Yeah. Yeah.
You went to university, yes?
Yeah, I did. I did do 2 separate tours at university. Yeah.
Okay. What did you go for again?
Well, the first time I dropped out.
Okay.
And I went because my parents told me I had to. But the second time...
Separately, they told you because they weren't together.
Yeah, well, my mom was like, I'm proud of you no matter what you do. Also, here comes my fist. And My dad was like, if you want a house to live in, you've got to go to the university. And I said, does a community college count as university? And he said, close enough. So I went to the local community college for psychology because it was the, how do I say, cheapest
Really?
I could get. I
That's
needed,
fascinating.
yeah, I got paid my first like 2 years I went to college. They paid me to go there.
Wow.
And then the third year, I don't know, I must have made them mad or something. And then they were like, you owe us so much money. So like, yeah, I went into debt from like 2 years at the University of North Dakota. So if you're thinking of going there, it is cheap, but also they are very bad at counseling. So it's not as cheap as you'd think. Anyways, I went to college and university for psychology, and yeah, so I have a bachelor's of science in applied psychology. Or is it just bachelor's of science in psychology? I should probably find wherever I put that diploma because I genuinely don't know where I put that pony.
Oh, very good. I was going to try and slide a pony joke in. You did it perfectly.
Thank you.
Like when we've talked before about, your understanding of psychology and and mental health and all those things, it was always under the guise of like, yeah, man, I'm fucking crazy too. And like, don't you hate it when this thing and that? Whereas like now, like the things that I've been through, I look for more like actual objective things and kind of rather than, spitting things back and forth to people as to like
snowballing, as you will.
Right. But you know what I mean? Like just that elastic conversation of my life sucks. Yeah, my life sucks too. That, that whole thing.
I also have sucked life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, I feel you, man. I had a rough, was it rough 2019? 2018?
Well, I noticed.
It was a rough 2019. I was in a spot, I think that was, it was like shortly after I'd done your guys' podcast, back when you were still doing it with Kim. I mean, you're still doing it, but
Right.
The podcast.
Zing!
That's what we're talking about. The pitch comes in, and it's high and outside. Oh, he gets a piece of it, and it is a foul ball. He has missed it wildly. It hit a kid. He needs to run. Yeah, and I hit a real low. My brain, it was just in a spot where it just didn't feel pliable anymore. That makes sense, and there was a dark spot, and I know you are familiar with dark spots, and I knew I had to do something. I had to do something, and I was lucky enough that a friend of mine came through town, and we hung out, and we had a little life-changing experience, and I went and I got some help. I got some counseling, got some help through that, and the guy was like, yo, bro, you got ADHD, dog. Like, fucking bad. I was like, what? But I'm not hyper. He goes, yeah, that's not all that it is. And like, I went to school for psychology. ADHD didn't fucking interest me at all. So I didn't.
Oh, that's funny.
Look at it at all. I didn't, in all of the, like, I've had like multiple abnormal psychology things, multiple cognitive stuff. Like I wanted to do neuroscience, studied autism, like all these things. Like I did all these things specifically around the brain, and never once was I like, ADHD, huh? That's more than just hyperactive kids. like here I am. I got formally diagnosed with ADHD at 34 years old, and was just like, I don't even know what to do now. And the last 2 years of like understanding why, like all these little things where it's just like, my wife would ask me a question, my brain would be like, how do you not know the answer to this? And it would like fucking snap.
Mm.
And I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't know why that like was a hot button for me. And now like here I am like, oh, you don't live in the weird world that is my brain, where it's like I can have a reaction to something that I'm like 7 steps connected to, but I can't tell you steps 1 through 4.
Oh, wow.
All of a sudden, or like I could tell you step 2, 6, and 7. Like there's no connection between these things, but I've gotten to the answer with nothing between it. So if you ask me and I give you the answer, like, well, how'd you come up with that? And I'm like, oh God, prepare yourself. It's like a journey, because there's no explaining how my brain will decide how it wants to do something. I know that I have 2 separate, like I call it 2 separate brains, right? So I have like the one that's like logical. That's like for instance, I was working on my house like a couple weeks ago, and was pulling nails out of a baseboard, and my brain, the smart one, goes, "Hey bud, pause. You need to adjust what you're doing, or you're gonna stab yourself with a nail." And dumb brain goes, "Ha, nah, man, can't stop, won't stop." Seconds later, nail through my finger, and I'm like, ah, ha, ha. Oh. So mad. And like through it from here all the way up to the other side, just straight through. And I was just like,
Really?
oh yeah.
Holy smokes.
And it was just like slam. Yep. Okay. Well, that's what happens. And then my dad goes to try to ask me a question, and I go, "Hey boss, I just need you to not ask me any questions right now, because I just stabbed myself with a nail and I am pissed, and I don't want to be mad at you because this is 100% a me thing. So let's just give it a minute. I haven't even bled yet." Like that's how fast the stabbing was, that my body was just like, is there a hole? And then it was like, there definitely is a hole. And then my hand was just like, here we go. Just gushing blood. And I'm just like, "Hey boss." He goes, "Well, if I were doing it, I'd do this." I'm like, "You are literally doing it. Just do that, please. I'm going to wash my hand. I'm going to find a Band-Aid, and then I will be more focused." But because of the chaos of stabby stab, dumb brain was now quiet.
Oh.
So now smart brain could do things. And I thought to myself, well, this is a terrible way to shut up dumb brain, because now that I know pain shuts up dumb brain, logical brain will realize that. Not a fun realization that all I have to do is hurt myself, and the voice that's like, "Hey, you like the Muppets?" shuts up.
Have we talked about, I think, when did you realize this?
Like 2 weeks ago.
God, that I'm having such a wild deja vu. The whole, and maybe somebody else has made that connection where pain receptors.
Oh yeah, your brain can only do like one thing. As far as like pain. So like if you're hurt somewhere, like if it's real bad, you can like hurt something else less bad, and your brain will be like, "Ow," and then it just can't process it right away. Like it's still gonna hurt. It's still gonna hurt, but it's not like that. "Ow, I need to address this hurt." You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Brains are complex and simple at the same time. It's very fun. I love it.
Now, we kind of went down a bit of a road there.
Yeah. Welcome to ADHD,
which
bud.
is to be expected with the ADHD for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep her on course, but don't know what that
which
course
this is the only podcast where my train of thought is kind of under control. It is, but it isn't.
Okay.
But like there's, and I don't know if I want to be perceived as like together.
Oh, I thought you were going to say smart.
No.
But together works.
Because if people watch it instead of listen, then they go, "Oh no, that's not a smart guy."
Yeah, this guy, he is not a smart guy. No, I know. I went to college with that guy. He is a smart guy.
Look, his office looks like where ADHD lives. Actually, this is there's tripods, guitars.
Honestly, yeah, yeah. This is kind of what my office looks like without Mazel and sound and
I wonder if there's something to that, like with ADHD and like having fun things visually available.
it's all about chasing the dopamine. With ADHD, because like our brains aren't good at like focusing on feeling, or they just always want to feel good. They always want that feeling of like, well, that was fun. So, like that's why we'll like pick up hobbies until we're bored and then just completely stop. And then that hobby is just dead to us until maybe we see something about that hobby that's like, would I have all that stuff?
Oh, reignites the
reignites the fire, and then you go out there and you're like, oh yeah, all right, make a s'more out here. There's a little heat. Yeah, this little guy actually got some heat.
Like s'mores. All of my hobbies end sticky as well.
Little sticky Chris himself.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, so what was so? Did it seem more like, in a logical sense, like fiscally, this makes sense, and it's a career path that I feel will be fulfilling? Or did you previously have thoughts of wanting to be in psychiatry or counseling?
So it was like, there's more around that general idea. Like, I was gonna do engineering, but like, it's really hard to get into engineering 7 days before the semester starts because like all the classes were full. But psychology, I was like literally one of maybe 3 guys in the whole course.
Before each class, do they make you wait in the lobby? That's a little psychology joke, because you go to see a psychologist and you have to wait in the lobby first.
Oh, yeah. No, they definitely do. Yeah, they're like, please sit.
It was a swing and a miss. What can you do?
Well, we can cut that out in post.
Sometimes you swing and you miss, and sometimes you swing and you miss. And
every now and then, you play baseball and you hit 100 or you hit 113.
Next thing you know, there's a bike in the bathroom.
Next thing you know, you got a nice little chopper that you're like, this is a triple for sure. Your contact folds over and you can't see first base, so you get to first base and you switched your glasses.
Oh, that's right. You like baseball, huh?
That actually happened to me when I played baseball. I had just been enduring like the just trash of a season, and I finally put good wood on the ball, and I had just a nice little cutting chopper over their shortstop. God, I'm running. Contact decides to fold. Like, oh no! I'm like, I can't see.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. I thought that was more sports ball talk.
No, real thing.
Then your contact folds. I was like, I don't know what the fuck
contact was. Just like, what's that? Was that wind? Oh no! It's like a trailer park in a tornado. It's just everything is shredded. So I went to college for psychology. It was between, like, I wanted to do some form of help for people, because like I grew up with an addict who was like clinically depressed and like all sorts of stuff. She had a bunch of different cognitive issues due to like drug abuse and things like that.
And I was curious about that too, is to like, because when Kim went to school, when she first started down the mental health road, rather than just nursing, she started, you can't help but diagnose people, and especially the more you do it, the more you're like, now I recognize it in body language and in speech, and so there's like you just start to latch onto that stuff quicker. But I was curious, because of your mom's situation, if you were privy to kind of like how her diagnosis, how it operated before even going to school.
No, so like it's kind of weird because my mom was like open about like seeing a therapist and things like that, so there was like no shame in like mental health, but like she just wasn't really doing the things that would have helped her. So like there was just like a lot of things that just kind of, like she was like using some drugs and stuff like that that really just kind of exasperated some of the things that she had going on, and added in the stress of a bunch of other stuff, like she technically couldn't have a job at a certain point and all these things. It just got to be a lot, and then as like a kid, you don't really understand because like, mental health generally doesn't, I mean, it can set in young ages, and it's not uncommon that it does, but like sometimes it doesn't set in until later in life, mid-20s, whatnot. So I'm dealing with a sibling that's older than me telling me, well, my mom never did that around me, or my mom never did this or that. And I'm like, what? Like my experience with our mom is entirely different than his experience with our mom was, than my sister's experience with mom was. So it's like, that's another part where you're just like, well, which one is true? In reality, all of them are, right? Because all of them are different things in her life, changed different things in her life. So it had me just really confused. And I liked engineering, and I probably would have done engineering had I planned to go to college right away. I originally wanted to take a year off and then maybe go to trade school. But my dad was like, I didn't go to college, so you got to go to college, kind of deal, classic boomer thing, So I went to college, and I picked psychology, and it was fun at first, and it was exciting, and it was like learning about the brain and things like that. And the first 2 years you're just kind of doing like the generals and whatnot, and then as you get into like the more advanced classes, you kind of pick a path, kind of deal. And I went with neuropsych, and it was fascinating. I really liked it. And then I had just the worst type of teacher that you can have. And it was a teacher that only taught their experience in the field instead of, it was like educational psychology was the class. And she was only teaching like, oh, well, sometimes someone will come in and, they have this diagnosis, but you can't diagnose them with that because if you do, then their insurance won't cover it.
Oh.
So then, you have to give them this other diagnosis so their insurance covers it. And it's like, fuck, what? No. Like, now you've given them this label that doesn't exist to them, and then they're paying, they're paying for this. And it's like, yeah, I understand that, like, you want to get paid too, but also, like, you're putting a stigma on them just so you can get paid, and that's just fucked.
Yeah.
And that completely broke me for it. But at that point, I was like, I don't know, maybe a semester away from finishing my degree. So I just told myself, all right, what can we do in this semester to get myself into different spots? And I always thought, well, if I'm going to do psychiatry, you got to go to med school. So I kind of geared myself towards like med school. I took some biology classes and that kind of stuff. And then I also was like, well, maybe I want to do law. So any of the psychology classes that I could take that also would line into that road, I kind of took, so it would be easier if I decided to make that decision. But I just got to the point where, as I got older, my ADHD got worse, and I just didn't realize it. Like, I've always been like a terrible reader. It's just not a thing I can do. I can't sit down. I can't focus on reading, or I can read, but it's like, it's so mentally exhausting to me to read. Yeah. It just wipes me out.
Having to go back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, and have to like go back and process what I read to like think that I got it right.
Yeah.
So I would just always glean information off teachers. Like the thing that would get me the most out of classes would realize how the teacher was passionate. So I like started to see passion in people, and then I would focus that passion and realize, okay, like name drop Hans Bradel. He's a teacher at UND. He hates the History Channel because they only hire the sexy historians, apparently. True. That's a true story.
Yeah, that's
very funny.
Whenever I watch the History Channel, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, ancient aliens. There he is, Constantinopolitanius, whatever his name is. And Yeah, so he was just like, Charlemagne ascended the throne in 800 AD on Christmas Day. Burned into my brain. I'm 36 now. He told me that when I was 21 or 2.
Mm.
It is absolutely seared into my brain. Maybe it was 832. Either way. Christmas Day, bro.
Christmas Day, dude.
So like that was like that kind of stuff is where I didn't realize my ADHD had just kind of taken the wheel and just fully driven.
Mm.
So I was just in high school and all that stuff. I'd always been on autopilot.
Well, I mean, I hate to keep going back and forth, but like I do want the reason that I want to touch on like kind of the general path that we were on before with you going to school and stuff like that is I had a conversation with Comrade where I said we were trying to figure out what to do, or I was trying to figure out what to do about the whole Mac situation. And you know, with him, things can be pretty black and white.
Yeah.
And I was like, I said, you know, it sucks. It sucks to know. I wish I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I would have rather have lived in denial. Knowledge is a curse.
Yeah, it really is.
Comrade said, knowledge is only a curse if you choose to do nothing with it. And I was like, wow.
That's a good point. But it also like, it reminds me of the old Twilight Zone where the guy is alone in a town and he is going to read books now and build knowledge and he breaks his glasses. Right. Like knowledge is only so much, like to Comrade's point, like it's only a curse if you don't use it. But like also if you're using it and you're around a bunch of people that aren't, what does that do?
Sure.
You know, it makes a scary situation.
Yeah. But when it comes to, because you're not one to, I mean, I've said this to you before, but like you're blunt in the most caring way that I've seen. Like,
yeah,
I'm not used to people being blunt in a fashion that I'm not like, God, this guy's being an asshole. Like,
I mean, that just comes down to just like caring, right? It's like,
but it's unique to the way that you do it.
Yeah, it's like I'm not doing you any favors if I just gloss over something,
right?
You know?
Yeah, it's a really good quality to have, but because you have that about you, and you have this knowledge of like what you actually need to do to fix situations and things like that, did it affect your relationships or the way that you communicated with people? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, like, and I've said this before. I don't know if I've ever said it on like the record, but like, ultimately, I just want a safe environment where people can feel empowered to do the best creation. And, you know, in the course of doing, you know, of wanting to achieve that, you know, I made a lot of mistakes. You know, was I hypervigilant? Yeah. And was that hypervigilance exuding from me to the point where like it could be kind of a toxic vibe? Absolutely. You know, I have this quality where I can bring the fun in the room or I can suck it right out. And it got to the point where with like comedy rooms and whatnot and wanting to make sure that, you know, an environment was safe or whatnot, that I just, you know, I just took it too far almost, you know, and you don't even notice it. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't like an apology tour or anything, but like, yeah, I do feel bad. And there are some things I definitely would change, you know, about like the way I handled things in the past. But like, that's the past. I can't do anything about it, right? It's right. I acknowledge that, yeah, was I a little too hard at trying to make safe environments? Absolutely. I forgot that it still needs to be fun. And that
sure.
it took the joy out of it for me, and no joy in it for me was then taking the joy out of it for others.
Mm.
And that's where my problem was, is that I was just not putting an environment that was conducive to joy and safety. It was safety first, It just became like, what's the show with the Bluth Company, Arrested Development?
Yeah.
Where I was just ripping arms off and teaching lessons, right? It's just like maybe a little too hard there, bud, So, yeah, and in that kind of, it poisoned my mind in a lot of ways, right? Because it's just like you would see these people that are hosting shows and not having the standard you have for like the safety of a show, or not having the inclusiveness level that you're trying to have, and just like get bitter. And it's just, it wasn't healthy, man. It wasn't healthy, and it was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, if I could go back and do it again, I would just not get into comedy, man. I wouldn't have to do any soul searching. It's way easier,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll bluntly say it. Like, I'm an adult, man. I'll own my mistakes. Have I fucked up? Yes. Will I continue to fuck up? Absolutely. But does that mean I don't believe that there's restorative justice that's needed, and that, like, I need to take the thumps? Yeah, I will take whatever thump someone thinks I deserve. I'm more than willing to own up to my mistakes, and I'm more than willing to do what it takes to, earn someone's trust back. It's not an easy thing to do, and that kind of hinders back to the Max situation. The last thing I said to him was like, hey man, like, we've had some really important times together, and like, I'm not supportive of this thing that you've been accused of doing. Obviously I'm not going to speak towards that side of things, but like,
Yeah.
all you can do is own your part in it and do your best to grow and show people that, that person that made that mistake understands that that was their mistake that was made, and they're willing to do what it takes to show that, hey, that's not who I am, that's who I was.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that whole situation, I before realizing that I have like codependency issues, which is more like having being hypomanic and having these ADHD and all of the things that I have. It's like a gnarly recipe for like a lot of selective self-righteousness. Because it's not that like I would apply the same level of my self-righteous bullshit to everybody.
Yeah.
But when I got, into that mode, I thought that I was just like, oh, I can read people, and my self-righteousness, it's not self-righteousness. It's, people's safety. And it was under the guise of these things. And
yeah, man.
But yeah, it's so weird to think of the way that I'm trying to think of how to word this, but like, that's kind of why I was curious, is because I am such a mental health advocate, but was missing some massive steps in being diagnosed. Because you were saying, didn't get diagnosed until you were 34. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, I knew I had depression, and I knew I had anxiety. No fucking clue I had ADHD.
Yeah.
That was a left field, like, what? You've been there the whole time?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I thought that anxiety was something that I'd gotten over, but really, it doesn't ever like fully go away.
Well, I mean, it depends on the type of anxiety. Like,
I suppose
you could get rid of a lot of general anxiety by, things like getting the right amount of sleep, eating properly, associating whatever trigger that you have, putting yourself into that position and exposing yourself to it over and over and over and over and over until your brain establishes a stereotype for it that's different than the one you have. So like there are ways to do that. I don't remember what type of therapy that is anymore. It's been 15 years since I graduated college. So.
Kim and I were just talking about it.
EMT?
That's so funny. I was just trying to remember that.
EPT, it's exposure something therapy.
Yes.
I've worked in the IT world for so long now that I've just forgotten the things that I've loved because like one weird thing about ADHD is like a heightened sense for the need of justice.
Yeah.
So like I've just been focusing on not fucking caring about that anymore. I want people to like associate me with being like fun. And safe. Not safe and fun. Fun first, safe second. Because, like, I should be dead multiple different ways. Because the thing with my ADHD is, like, if you told me, let's go do this thing right now, I wouldn't second guess it.
Right.
I would do it immediately. If you sent me a text, hey, on Tuesday, let's go do this thing, I wouldn't show up. Same thing.
Yeah.
But my anxiety has had time to think about it. And my ADHD has then supercharged my anxiety because it's like, here's 97 things that we could do. And then I hyper-focus. And then I start deep diving. And then next thing you know, because it always ends up here, I'm on YouTube watching Elliott Smith videos wondering how he stabbed himself in the chest with a knife 2 times. It always ends up there.
That's so funny.
So it's like I have to be hyper vigilant of my hyper focus and make sure that like if I'm entering it, someone needs to know, don't wake daddy. That is not going to be good for anyone. So dude, it's just weird. Life is weird. I wish I would have known I had this shit way younger because like if you watch TikTok ADHD,
that's the other thing that I was trying to bring up is sometimes I like in my attempt to sound like I know what the fuck I'm talking about, I end up losing vocabulary. But really what I'm trying to say is like it's weird to think that because you're an ally and an advocate to all of these things that you have a grasp on like basic civil rights, right? And then if you're a mental health advocate, you have a blanketed understanding of how to approach mental health in general. Yeah. Or like because I have this lived experience, if I tell you my war stories and do it in this certain way so that you know that we're on the same level or that you're not alone, yada, yada, yada. Like, that means that you've got your shit under control. You know what I mean? If you're able to articulate it properly and
that's one of the interesting things about ADHD is like one of the ways we try to like relate to other people because like our brains just don't work the same is by giving like a shared experience of something that we have. And 90% of the time, Chris, no one knows how we got to that experience. It's like, oh yeah, one time I also, and then you like say whatever it is and you're like, what? It doesn't make any sense. So then, because like, I don't know if it's the same for you, but my inner monologue is as loud as my voice is right now to me. So I can't tell if I'm talking or if I'm thinking.
So I do the thing where I have to interrupt you, otherwise I'm gonna go off into too many different things.
Yep.
So I don't do that, but I do interrupt a lot.
Yeah. Well, and see that's another thing too that's normal about ADHD because that's our way of showing that we're actively listening. and that we care about what you're talking about, and that we will just dissociate from the conversation in seconds if we don't, because otherwise I'll sit there and go, remember to say this, remember to say this, remember to say this, remember to say this. And meanwhile, you're just grocery store music now. You're in the background, and are you Backstreet Boys? Are you NSYNC? I can't quite tell.
Is that Spin Doctor? I haven't heard those guys in years.
I would know that because I love them. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's stuff like that where it's just, I am notorious for jumping in 3/4 of the way of my sentence and then being like, yeah, and then that. And my wife will be like, I go, oh, that was all in my head, wasn't it? And she'll go, yep. All right. Okay. So how I got there was this. Like, you said this 4 hours ago. And now I just realized it's been 4 hours and I have been focusing on that and don't even know what I've done for the last 4 hours. And then she'll say something along the lines of, oh, we did a lot in the last 4 hours and you interacted and you had conversations. And I'll be like, oh no, I don't remember any of it because my brain decided autopilot was now engaged. And in the back, I'm just listening to whatever. And just
it's funny,
bopping around.
I don't know if Kim has ADD or ADHD or anything like that, but she does do the start a conversation that she's been having with herself.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll do but plane tickets are going to be so expensive this time of year. And I'm like, what?
What now?
I don't. To go to Nashville. Why are we going to Nashville?
Wait, when are you going to Nashville?
We're not going to Nashville.
Okay, it's just weird.
But that's so she goes backwards.
Yeah.
In the whole thing, rather than being like, oh, I was thinking about. She'll go, in reverse order of the thing.
There's no order of operations in my brain. It just will occur. And what I've found with my particular style of ADHD is if I can give my brain motivation for doing something that I want to do, I'll do stuff. For instance, I put our baseboards back in our house for the first time in 2 years on Saturday. And how I got myself motivated was I'm deathly afraid of using the nail gun, apparently. Because it's a number of things. I've been shot with one. The sound,
yes,
and the potential that the air compressor could just be like, here we go, out of nowhere, and I'm just like, oh god, it's all of these. It's the jump scare potential.
Yeah, it's
the what happens if this slips and a nail shoots through my fucking body again. All of that.
I feel like Happy Gilmore is the first thing I think of every time I see a nail gun.
Thunk. So I have to now motivate myself, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll text my dad. I text my dad. I'm like, hey, I just need some words of motivation. I need to get these boards back in, and I'm dragging because I'm terrified. And he's like, well, just remember the first step is just to do it. And just remember that. Just the first step is to do it. Because ADHD brains, the first step is, I have 87 steps I need to do for this. What is the first step? Stand up. Just stand up. And once you stand up, I like to do, to trick my ADHD brain, I'll give myself 5 tasks. And then I will just order them in the order of operations of which ones I do not want to do. But then I'll throw 3 easy ones in.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, you got to go get the tools to do this. So just get the tools. And then it was like, well, you used the nail gun last week. And then my brain was like, yeah, but this is a new air compressor. We just bought a new air compressor. How do we know this one's going to work? Okay, that's valid point, brain. Okay, we will give you that point. We don't. And then it was like, yeah, what if it would explode? Because it could explode. because we didn't do maintenance on it. And then logical brain is like, it's brand new. Why do we have to do maintenance on it? And then dumb brain is like, that's what they want you to think. So now I'm like, I am wrestling with this. And then I just remembered the dipshits that have been working on my bathroom, the dumbest one that works there, they let him use a finishing nailer. And if that guy can do it, I'll be fucking damned if I can't. I will be damned if I can't do it. So then my brain was like, do you want to be worse than this guy? Do you want to be worse than this guy? Because that's where you're at, buddy. And I was like, fucking fine. And I just went to town and I got him done. And then I was like, sick. My wife's not done with her task. So my reward for doing this was I was going to build this giant Lego bulldozer that I bought. That was my reward. But I told myself, okay, well, we'll do the reward as a celebration when we're all done with our tasks. So now I have to find another task to do in the meantime. So now I'm doing another task. And then my wife's still not done. So I'm doing another task. My wife's still not done. I'm doing another task. Still not done. Still not. Next thing you know, I've rearranged my living room entirely. Like our house had gotten to the point where it was under so much construction that we had like, it looked like a hoarder house. Straight up. Everything was just, we had like a footpath to walk through these rooms. And now there's like 20 feet of open space to walk through. We had done, or in that space, I had done so much to just move this. But then I tricked my ADHD. If I'm just like, oh, you're going to take a break, I'll tell myself, oh, okay, you can do it in 5 minutes. Just do this one thing. And then when I'm about to take a break, I'm going to be like, oh, this thing's right here. Just do that really quick. And then I'll do that. And then I'll do that. And next thing you know, it's been like 4 hours and I haven't taken a break. So then if I take a break, I don't feel guilty because I just did 4 hours of work.
Is this lived experience stuff, or did you like do research after you had learned, like gotten up? Because we all joke that we have ADHD or ADD. Like everybody at some point says that. But when you get the actual diagnosis, it's a different thing. Because then you're like,
yeah, it's so a lot of it was like I've always struggled with like bursts. You know what I mean? Like at work, I can be hyper productive because. At work, I can task switch. So like people will say, "Oh, you're really great at multitasking," but for me, it's not multitasking. Also, multitasking is a myth. Anyways, we don't need to talk about that. But task switching. So if I give myself 3 tasks at work, and when I get bored with one, I just work to the next, and know that if I work in a triangle to finish them, I'll get them all done.
Oh.
But I'll just go, all right, I'm going to do this one until I'm thinking of something else. And then when that happens, I'll look at this Post-it note and then I just churn through. So I can put out an insane amount of stuff because I'm never allowing myself to get bored. So it's just constant motivation.
See, I have the type of ADHD where if I'm not invested in it, like if I can't make that connection, then I cannot focus. All I can think about is how much I don't want to do whatever it is the thing is. And I get like narcolepsy basically.
Oh, yeah.
Like at the tool job that I had,
You just pass out.
I was drinking 6 Monster Energy drinks and still was like on the verge of just full on passing out. And
yeah, that's
like,
not uncommon.
Fell asleep on the phone with somebody. But yeah, it's one of those things that like, I don't know. ADHD is so much. It's like I just learned. Kim told me that like a lot of serial killers are antisocial.
And cops.
But antisocial doesn't mean what I thought it meant. Like we hear antisocial like the common person and think that means you don't want to be around people.
No, it's just you don't understand the norms of society.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. So it's interesting to like the same thing with ADHD. I thought that we think that it's this thing where it
like,
just means,
there's a squirrel. Like anytime someone says that, I'm like, oh my god, I fucking hate you.
It's like, I'm in a meeting with people who decide my paycheck, and I cannot keep my eyes open.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how important the discussion is. Like, I just, if my brain can't get invested somehow.
Yeah. I'm a nappy boy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was the same way when I worked for my last job.
So do you take any medication for ADHD?
No. I was going to get medicated for it, but there's like a lot of them had lactose in it and all these things. And so they're like, well, you're managing it now. Let's just keep an eye on it. And it got really bad not too long ago. But it was all because of the clutter in my house and all the stuff that had been going on with this bathroom and work, and like getting this company to come back and actually own up that they tried to fuck us out of $20,000. So it was like a lot of that, a lot of stress. Like if you watch the last podcast that I was on from you to this one, look at my beard. Thing's all white. I'm 36. I didn't have a spot of white until I was like 33, 34. And then these last 2 years of just like stress have turned into my beard just piecing out of color. So
yeah,
it's weird, man. ADHD has been, being diagnosed with it has been like the best journey of my life. Cause like I always knew I had anxiety and depression, cause like I was a sad boy, right? Like I fucking knew that, but like I never knew I had ADHD, and it made so much sense, because it's just like I didn't focus in school. I'd sleep in class. I wouldn't do any homework, wouldn't pay attention to the teachers. I had really great grades because I just understood the concept, and as soon as I did that, I was just bored.
Oh.
So like it was always, I think, graduated honor roll, and I never brought home books. Like I'd finish the assignments in class while they were teaching the concepts.
Yeah.
Just because the stuff clicked, and then like hearing people do like Common Core math and whatnot, like, well, it just doesn't make sense. Like, well, that's how my brain has been doing it forever. So like all that stuff made sense to me, because like now, oh shit, that's how I do it. Like, and it just is, it just made so much sense. And it I don't know, man, it took just like a lot of weight off my shoulders. And then a couple months after I diagnosed with it, TikTok starts picking up, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna look on TikTok, see what they got. And because TikTok is intrusive, and like I'm talking about my ADHD. Well, TikTok hears that on my old speaky phone, and now it's throwing me ADHD like coaches and ADHD PsyDs and all these things, and I'm like, oh, that explains exactly what it is. Like, oh yeah, that does explain that too. Oh yeah, and it's just like, oh, yep. Okay, yeah, didn't know that about that. Okay, oh, all right, now that's a piece that I didn't know my brain was doing subconsciously, but now that the label's there goes the wool. And like now I see the mechanism. So now I'm able to kind of adjust it. Now if I see that it's going to be a little more aggressive than it should be, I'll just tell Michaela, I'll be like, hey bud, I'm not going to be able to focus for a while. I'm like full on ADHD braining. She'll be like, all right, what do you need to do? And I'm just like, if you want to watch just a trash TV show or something while my brain just straight up stims, go for it. So, I don't know, man.
It's interesting too. Like, I don't know what changed, because I would latch on to, like, I hated labels from an earlier age, because I felt that like my first example of it, and it'll make sense why I bring this up, but like in school, like there's a teacher and then there's a student, and the teacher is going to talk to the student in a certain way. regardless of what I felt like, kids aren't completely stupid, and they're not all, video games and whatever. Like, you are capable of having like normal conversations with them. So,
well, to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to realize, like, children are being programmed.
Right.
And like when people are like, "Oh, don't program my child," like, you're fucking programming them. That's everything. Every interaction you have with them is just putting another bank of data in their computer brain. That's all you're doing.
Right. But I mean, in the way that it affected me was when somebody would talk down to me, or I would see them talk down to another student. It was insulting in the sense that, like, I'm cognitively aware enough that we don't need to be spoken to this way.
Yeah.
And
like, you can teach me a concept without making me feel stupid.
Yeah. Or like, you don't need to teach me a lesson in a degrading way that you would your own kids. Like,
which
this is supposed to be like a starter, or like it's maneuvering through society with bumpers.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, school is all about socialization.
Yeah. So
otherwise you get those weird homeschooled kids.
If you
And I'm not sorry if any of you homeschoolers are listening. I'm not. You're weird.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
But because it seems like if it's a serious enough thing, then the dialogue should match.
Yeah.
And go, rather than like, do you realize, like the way that a teacher can really sometimes like rail into a kid is like,
I mean, it just sounds like you had shitty teachers.
Maybe.
Like, like, I love teachers. The profession is hard. But some of you should not be doing it. It's just, you shouldn't fucking be doing it.
Yeah.
If you're yelling at your kids constantly, guess what? You shouldn't be a fucking teacher.
Yeah.
Don't yell.
Yeah.
All you're doing is inciting a riot, and guess what? There's more of them than there are of you. And when they realize that they have an insane amount of power, especially 30 of them against one, you think those little feral beasts are going to take it easy on you? No. They're going to break you to your core.
How awkward is it when you hear an adult say, I don't want to get yelled at? Like, when they're like, I just don't want to get yelled at. Like, it's because you had bad adult examples ingraining that weird shit into you. So like, that was like the first.
I won't let people yell at me. I won't do it.
Yeah. I'm not about it either. So initially, like, it was seen as like I was like a problematic child, but really
standoffish.
Like problems with authority, and you're just always going to have issues with authority. And it's like, what I really think it came down to was objective truths. So give me the objective thing that you're trying to convey right now, rather than this weird.
Yeah, you're just asking for the why.
Yeah. So when I would do the why stuff, it was. So as an adult, once I started to the point you were making before about like when you got diagnosed with ADHD, you're like, oh my God, good. This makes sense. Like I try to talk about that a lot on the show too, is that like, it doesn't mean that you're now like disabled.
I mean, you are, but
you're not incapable of functioning as a human being anymore.
Yeah, just because you're not neurotypical doesn't mean you're any lesser than.
Right.
Right. So I mean, there are so many worse things that you can have brain wise than ADHD. Like,
sure, and I mean, to that I always say like, it's the starving kids in Africa thing. Like, because of a more severe thing exists doesn't mean that your thing isn't affecting you the way that it does in that moment. But when I started to learn, and I didn't have like a chip on my shoulder or like I don't know, a negative connotation to the thing.
Yeah.
And I was able to say, oh, this is an objective thing that now it's actually just a piece to this puzzle. It's helping me solve these mysteries as to why I act this way towards people and why I do these things.
Now, my ADHD just told me Apple. Do you know why?
No.
In the Da Vinci Code, he's got the cipher.
Yeah.
And it's the Newton thing, and it's Apple. A piece of a puzzle to solve the Da Vinci Code is what my ADHD brain just did. But if I would have said Apple, like I was going to do, you'd have been like, what the fuck? And that's what ADHD brain does for me.
Or I would have...
The word associations are so fucking vivid.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That's I'll say, you know what? I say that to Kim all the time. I go, you know what my brain just did? And like, I'll go like, there are 1,000 things rifled through and I somehow got here in 2 seconds.
Yeah. There's just the journey. And just to explain to someone like that journey, like, was the payoff worth it for Apple? Fuck no. It wasn't. But it's important for people that may just think that like ADHD is like, oh, the next shiny. Oh, I'm distracted. No, man. Sometimes with ADHD, you'll be fucking hyper-focused. You will be so dialed into a thing, and it doesn't happen often. But if someone comes in and interrupts you, instantly snap to anger. You're dead to me. You're a dead person. I found a moment of joy for a fucking second, and I was really vibing in it. I was super fucking excited. But now I don't want to see this thing ever again because now it only associates anger. Thanks, ADHD brain.
That's interesting.
I'm so fun to be around now. It's like shit like that where you're just like, listen, I am a crazy person.
Yeah.
But I am not a dangerous person.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, here's the thing my ADHD brain did to me when I realized I need to get out of the job I'm in. When I was receiving some services, like early on in my counseling sessions, I went up and visited my dad, and he's just got a 410 by the door, just in case, like, you know, gophers come around and he wants to introduce him to his new friend. And my brain was like, I wonder what a shot bullet would taste like. And I was like, well, I can't have those in my house now. Because my brain was like, the taste is more important than the fucking danger of eating a gun. Like, it didn't put 2 and 2 together that that's a murder machine if you're trying to taste the thing that it kills, that it shoots at you. Like, it didn't do that.
I mean, even before that, like, that's a huge reason why I don't have a gun in my house is if I didn't have to get creative with my suicide attempts, then I wouldn't be here. If I had the what's that fucking infomercial, Quick Seal, where the guy slaps the thing. If I didn't have the fucking Quick Seal solution, then I definitely wouldn't be here.
That stuff actually works pretty well.
Does it really?
Yeah, I had to use it on our roof for like a year. We got a new roof now. We're not total trash.
But like because the ADHD also, like we've been saying, is like somebody says, like, throws out an idea and you just go, yeah, sure. And
it's
you
like,
go and you do it.
It's like constantly having improv brain.
Yeah. But it applies to the dangerous shit too, like you're talking about.
Which isn't fucking fun.
No.
Right? We're just like, hey guys, we're going to need a suggestion from the crowd. And your brain's like, mayonnaise. And you're like, fucking what?
I lost my penis.
Oh, what you... Is it there?
There it is.
It
happens sometimes.
I just said, is it there? I wasn't looking anywhere.
Oh, really?
Nope.
That's funny.
0%. I didn't point. I was just like, is it there? Just calling it out as if that's how things appear.
Yeah. So,
and it worked. So now my brain is like, that's how things appear.
So the so you have major depression, anxiety, and ADHD.
I don't have major depression. I have dysthymia.
Oh, dysthymia.
Yeah. So I think Peter also has that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I had to tell, like, I did my work year-end review goals today, and one of them is like, one of our things is like, be real, and that, like, that's one of our, like, our goals is like, hey guys, how are you doing with the company values? Be real. And one of them is like, it's like, be humble, and I just wrote in there like, I can't be humble because I have dysthymia, anxiety, ADHD. Those three together, if I humble myself, I will believe I am incapable of anything.
Interesting.
Because then my brain will say, well, okay, well, you're not that good at this, so why do it? Well, you're not this good at this, so maybe don't do that. So I can't be humble. And one of my biggest pet peeves is my brother will say, oh, I'll say, yeah, I'm really good at this, and be like, oh, and so humble, or oh, so, well, I can't remember what the other word is.
Humble brag?
No, it's not a Harris Whittles. There's another word that it means humble. I just can't think of what it is, but it drives me fucking nuts to the point where, like, I'm going to have a talk with him where it's just like, listen, Ryan, I love you, but don't you ever fucking say that to me again. It's hard for me to do things, and it's hard for me to believe that I'm good at things, and it's even harder to maintain that I'm good at things. Like, I know I'm intelligent, and I know I'm incredibly great at my job, but if I allow myself to not believe for a second that I'm not good at my job or that I'm just okay at it, that's it. I'm only ever going to be meh at my job, and then I'm going to start to hate it. And then I'm going to start to dig into that hole again where I'm 13 years in at Best Buy and thinking about eating a bullet just because I wonder what it tastes like after it fires. Like, what's the mix? Like, and now I'm a mixologist, but gunpowder's my avenue. Like, that's where I had gotten to, and it's not safe. And I celebrate everything now, every fucking thing, every little stupid fucking thing I did. I threw all of the mail that I collected because guess what? ADHD. I'm like, I'll open this later, and then later is 6 months. I had like a stack of mail. I opened it all and I was like, fuck yeah, I did it. I'm going to do this every day now so I don't have to do that again. No, I'm not. I'm telling you that's what I want to do. My ADHD brain will be like, I'm busy. I got to go run and do this thing quick. Well, that thing now is the standard for the next 6 months until I'm sick of this fucking mail pile. And then just begins that vicious cycle over and over again. And like that, to like kind of loop this back into comedy, is how comedy started to become toxic for me, because I wouldn't believe I was funny because I was only ever on open mics, or like every now and then I'd do a show and I would give myself the rules of the show. Like, it's fucking comedy. Yeah, there's quote unquote rules, but no, there's not. Like, just fucking go out there and rip.
Yeah.
But I would give myself all these rules. Like, I was funny enough to get hired as a host at a couple different clubs. And my brain was like, all right, the rules are now you've got to wear a button-down shirt and comb your hair. Like, fucking no. You have to be funny and command the crowd.
Yeah.
That is it. Should you look like you're not going to stab someone at a bus stop? Maybe.
I mean, look at Jay Okerson.
So you shouldn't look like Jay Okerson.
But that guy, to your point,
yeah,
like, to not have
just have fun. Like, the whole goal of doing comedy is to have fun. And like, if you're out there believing that you're not funny, you're gonna not be funny. You know, and if you're out there saying, well, these are the rules when I go up there, I have to not wear shorts on stage, and I have to make sure that I move the mic stand, and like, no, just go have fucking fun. And if you're focusing on the little minutia of things, call it out. Like Shane Torres has, I don't remember what his diagnosis is, but like he basically fidgets the whole time he's on stage. But he calls it out and tells people like, listen, this is my diagnosis. I'm going to look like I'm fidgeting and shit, and that is just what my diagnosis is.
Is that the Guy Fieri dude?
Yeah. Incredible joke. But he'll just be on stage like feeling textures and shit. But he calls it out. And he just goes up and rips. And like, that's what I forgot. And that's what I started to not allow people to remember. Right? I was Robin Williams in Hook, and I had lost my imagination, so I was going to starve.
Yeah.
I have to relearn fucking imagination and just fun. And part of my new job has been that. It's been me seeing how far I can push the line. And it's pretty far. I Photoshop my boss into stuff 2 or 3 times a week. My boss is a great boss. He understands that I'm going to be a fuck off some days, you know, but the output he's going to get from me is pretty high. But on those fuck off days, man, it is going to be fun. It's going to be a fun day. Shit's going to be weird. I love it. I'm happier than I've ever been.
It's interesting the our approach to how to make the day bearable, because for people like us, like that's step one. How do I make the day bearable?
Yeah.
I always say this before I went to treatment. I didn't admit that I was an alcoholic, but I said I want to change, because right now I don't.
Yeah.
Like I would, I
know you need to, but
I
you
could
don't
live
want to.
on this adult mental health unit for the rest of my life, because that's where I think I deserve to be. So it's interesting to see like how your day starts versus how my day starts, and like the things that I guess there's like I've found ways to like I was saying before about the making sure, you know, that like the way the authoritative stuff, and like, but I'll talk to people too, like when people complain about their jobs and they're working with clients or customers or interacting with other human beings.
Oh yeah, human beings.
And they talk about them like like somebody will say, mop the floor, in the same tone that they say, go check on room 22.
Yeah.
Well, Steve's in room 22. So why don't you say, go check on see
Steve.
if Steve needs anything.
Yeah.
So like I have this tick in the back of my mind, which maybe it's another like codependency thing where I'm like, those are human beings. Like I don't.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm projecting where it's like, I don't want anyone to think of me that way. I want to be perceived as a human being.
I mean,
so
part of that could be the psychosis that is ADHD, because like you're thinking of Steve, but then your brain is trying to relate to Steve. So now this thing that they said that pertained to Steve now pertains to you. You know what I mean? It's projecting, but it's also like, it feels real. It feels so fucking real. And it's like little things like, yeah, I'm good. You alluded to this earlier. I'm very good with difficult conversations. So a coworker of mine and I today did our year-end reviews, and he's the little guy, younger little fella. He's like 33 or something. I don't know. But he's never had a job where he's had to do a corporate style year-end review.
Oh.
So I walked him through it, and he's like, well, I think I'm a 4. And I go, all right, well, I'm going to challenge you on that. Let's read out what a 4 is. This is a 4. Do you do this thing? And he goes, well, no. I'm like, all right. And he's like, well, then I'm not a 4. I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, let's read them all. Like, let's go up to a 5. Do you do any of these things? And like 1 or 2. I'm like, all right, great. You got 1 or 2 in the 5. How many you got in the 4? Like 5 out of 7. And then he's like, hold on. I'm a 3. I'm like, no. Like, you're 4. Because you do all the 3, and you do a lot of the 4 and some of the 5. You're 4. And he's like, on this next one, he's like, I'm a 4 for sure. And I'm like, I'm going to challenge you, but I think you're a 2. Let's look at what 2 is. Do you do any of these things? And he's like, I do all of them. I'm like, you do all of them. You're 2. I'm like, and that's not a bad thing. That just means you have room for growth. And you have 3, 4, and 5 above you to see what those are, to grow. Like, also, you're a Tech 1, I'm a Tech 2. If you do all these things in Tech 1, by the time a Tech 2 spot comes open and you apply for it, you can ask for more money because you're going to come in as a 4 as opposed to a 2. So you just got to realize that, like, it is worth more to be honest with yourself about where you are. Own that and make a plan on how to be better. Like, and I told him, he was like kind of down, and I go, you got until 4 o'clock to be down, and then we're going to change that attitude on being excited for growing. It was 3:59, so I was like, I don't have time for this. 4 o'clock hit, I'm like, all right, growth mindset, here we go, let's do this. And I spent 2 hours with him writing his with him. And it was a constant thing.
It's so interesting to hear that like concept with the way that your biology is.
Mm-hmm.
Like if somebody were to hear your diagnoses,
My digness.
I don't think that they would think, you wouldn't assume that you would be able to get to there, to be able to have that outlook. So it's interesting the way that you have these things that would lead somebody to think that you're not capable of looking at yourself in a high regard, and therefore you would lean more towards empathizing with people rather than finding these objective ways to help people get there.
Well, and that's like, I know for a lot of people.
Was your dad like that? Like where, or how did you?
I am a hodgepodge of of different mindsets and experiences, and there's no one person that had a specific effect on me. There was a lady that I used to do jobs for in Grand Forks. Her name was Tamara Reed, I think.
We'll put her Instagram up right here.
I hope she's still alive, but like all of me knows she's dead because she was like 95 when I was doing jobs for her. I haven't lived there in 10 years, but she was like she was very spiritual. She was like into like Nirvana, not the band, but like the mental
concept.
state.
Yeah.
She loved Nirvana. Don't get me wrong. She let them rip. Like her and I would just go back and forth. Be like, can you believe this is Dave Grohl? But yeah, she like taught me a bunch of things about like mindfulness, and I would like, she was going blind, right? She had macular degeneration, so I would go out there and help her with her little MacBook and like ways that she could see, and play her mindfulness seminars that she had from basically like what would now be TED Talks. So, I mean, then they had TED Talks there, but like these people are now doing TED Talks. I should say. Not like TED Talks are just invented in the last 10 years. And that was like just the talks I'd have with her were really, eye-opening. And Best Buy did this thing, and fuck you, Best Buy. If you want to come at me, do it. I don't fucking care. Fuck you, you're a shit company. They did this thing with their leaders where they allow leaders to manipulate employees that are maybe questioning on the philosophy of why, into manipulating the leaders to having them manipulate as if they don't belong, or they're not as good as other employees.
They don't. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I gotcha.
Even though on paper they're better, like everything about them is better because they don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Wait, so
They're not.
does Best Buy neg their employees?
Some of them, yeah. Yeah, for me it was awful. Like I was at a point where if I wanted more counseling, the number of incidents that Best Buy has caused to me, I could get 8 counseling sessions per incident, and that would be enough for the rest of my life with all the incidents that were done to me.
Wow.
It was a world where I just couldn't believe in myself, because anytime I think I'm getting good at this, one of the managers that I had that was shitty along the way would tell me I wasn't. And they would tell me, you're not doing well here, you're not doing well here, this. And then I would be like, well, why am I getting 4 out of 5 on all these things? And why am I getting, like, why are you rewarding me for these things when you're also telling me I'm bad? Like, I don't get it. So it was this constant mind fuck. And it finally got to the breaking point where I took mushrooms with a buddy, and fucking mushrooms saved my life. I know that, like, listen, I'll say drugs are dangerous, and like they can be awesome too. Just be fucking responsible. Do them safely. Know your balance. Know what you need. And I was just at a point where it just didn't fucking matter. Right? And I had been given some from a friend who had moved and didn't want to take them on a plane. And I had them for like 8 months, just sitting there, just too afraid to take them. And my buddy came into town, and he was like, let's do some mushrooms. So we did mushrooms. I just did a small amount, and it cleared my brain of like this fog that had been there for a long time. Just that constant voice of all the shitty Best Buy managers that I'd had for so long. That it was just like, get help now. Schedule all the help you can get. So I went, called the phone number to get counseling, got the counseling going, and it gave me enough headway to start getting the treatment that I needed, to start getting the help I needed. And, I got diagnosed with a bunch of things in there. I have PTSD, mostly from Best Buy, from just the way I was treated. It got bad. I mean, it got really bad. And I just remember, like, the proudest point for me was when I had a personal development day at Best Buy, and my boss was like, well, what are you going to do for work, or for your personal development day? And I looked at him and I go, well, I am going to update my resume, and then I'm going to apply for every fucking job I can to get out of here. And he was like, okay. And I did. And I applied for literally one job, and I got it. And, as life often does throw you multiple curveballs, I found out right before I was about to accept this role that my brother got cancer. And Best Buy, I had 5 weeks of vacation with an option to do caretaker vacation if I couldn't do it. So basically it was 7 weeks of vacation that I had just not used at all. So I could go out and be with my brother for 7 weeks. Or I could take this new job, which would be more beneficial to my mental health. And I talked with my wife, my then girlfriend, now wife, and I talked with my brother, and my parents were like, we're fucking retired. We'll go out and be with him during his treatment. We're retired, you dipshit. And I was like, oh, yeah. So they went out, and I took the job, and it's done a lot, and unfortunately the pandemic hit then, and the pandemic has been great for me too, because I've been able to think back on like situations that like made comedy not fun for me. You know, comedy is like a very much close-knit friends give close-knit friends more opportunities on shows.
Oh, for sure.
And like, you can be bitter about that, or you can realize that like, these are people that they trust.
Yeah.
And like, if you're not on their trusted list, that's okay. There are other venues that you can start your own and build your own tight-knit group of friends. And that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay not to be in the cool kid club. And it's okay that the cool kid club only trusts the cool kids club, because guess what? That's who they trust. So
Well,
like, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and comedy like kind of teaches you a healthy version of self-deprecating.
It can.
It can. It can. Like for me, it definitely did. Where like, I remember not getting on a Pickled Loon show, and I'd only been doing open mics for like a year maybe.
Yeah.
And another comic had called me, and they were complaining about how they hadn't gotten on this show, and they were like, "Can you believe that they didn't put us on this show?" And I was like, well, I suck right now. I don't want to go on and I don't want to go up there and suck.
Yeah.
So like, there's this way of like shitting on yourself, but really what you're saying is another thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. It's this coping mechanism, which it's like,
it's a rejection thing. Well, you're
right.
You're working on.
But it's the same as having dark humor in a situation where people think that you should be sad and whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes these dark humor jokes help you get out of that situation.
Yeah.
Self-deprecating does the same thing for me.
Yeah.
In these
and like,
situations.
The other thing too is like, it's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
But like, when you're sad, think about why. Or think about like, oh, I didn't get this thing. Okay, well, why didn't you get the thing? Well, and if the first thing you think is, well, because they only ever put their friends on this show. Okay, if that sentence is true, why do you want to be on that show? Do you like that person? Is that person your friend? Obviously not, because they only ever put their friends on the show. So either you have to put in the work to be their friends and be a good comic, or go do a different thing. And that's okay. It's okay to not go to the Acme comedy clubs in the world. You know, it's okay to not be the hot comic or the top 5 comics to watch. That's fine. Just because those 5 were picked by a group of people that it's their style of comedy doesn't mean there's not an entirely different group of people that would rather watch you than those 5. Just put in the work. Do the work on you. Do the work on your jokes, and just have fun with it. I mean, comedy isn't life or death. I mean, I guess for some people it is, but
right. But I mean, it's also like, I don't know. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on like the turnover rate in comedy and that whole thing. But we have been going for a little bit here. You've been doing a great job of giving advice. Sure. I'm curious to your thoughts on how do you get to the point to where you're able to recognize the kind of that thing you were saying before as to I'm sad, why am I sad, that whole thing. Like, yeah. But where do you, like the whole Dunning-Kruger effect thing? Like, do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is?
I don't.
This is the concept that stupid people lack the capacity to recognize that they're stupid.
Oh God, I would love that.
So it's like, it's like how a far right person can't understand somebody on the far left.
Even though they have the same views.
Right.
It's just from a different lens. Yeah.
But I mean, they lack the capacity to even try to understand the other thing because they don't recognize how deep they are in the other thing.
Yeah. Well,
so like,
does
that make sense where I'm trying to go?
Yeah. How do I recognize something and then break it down? Basically.
Yeah. Or like doing detective work on yourself to, because you seem to be pretty good at the deduction thing.
Yeah. It's just part of like a healthy trauma response, right? Because like a lot of life is trauma, and it's how do you respond to it. So like, I try to say, okay, like say you said something to me that made me sad, and you didn't intend for that, right? That's intent versus impact. So you need to look at it and be like, all right, from my end, I need to realize that your intention wasn't to hurt me, but your impact was that it was. So then I would say something along the lines of like, hey, Chris, I know you weren't trying to hurt me, but when you said this, it made me feel like this.
Wow.
And just like be open and honest with you, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's like also needing just to take the time. Like for the longest time with comedy, I'm bitter. Like, and I'll admit it. Like I'm bitter, and I just want to be able to go do showcases and just have fucking fun doing comedy. But like I'm bitter. I feel like I was put in a place to be a better example of how men should handle comedy, and the people that put me in that position then abandoned me and let me take the reins of it. And that's on me, right? Because I didn't stop to think, what is the impact of what I'm doing?
Wow.
Right? And that harkens back to what I said earlier with like, my intent was to make a safe environment. The impact was I was being too toxic. And that's a me issue. Now, the people put me in there because they wanted me to be a better example. But like anything, I didn't have the capacity to do that on a level that I should have. Or on a level where I thought, sat down and had some thoughtfulness on things, right? So in doing so, I went too far. I just went too far. And that intent to do a good thing could have the impact of doing a bad thing for other people. So that's where, like, say, it all comes down to circle of influence and then intent versus impact. If you understand how to operate both of those, you can really do kind of a lot of healthy things. Well, the last 2 years of me has been like, I fucked up. I asked a comic one time, like, hey, why am I not getting booked on your showcase? Or like, why have you told me, oh, we'll have you on, but you've never had me on? And then, they told me just straight up, well, it's because you like bring the room down. And that was like, in my intent to make a safe space and be like a person that could be an example of like, hey, you can still be funny and not punch down. And, you can still be funny and make sure that people feel safe around you. I went too fucking far and was like, you need to cut the shit that you're doing here because people aren't feeling, or you're making people feel this way. Well, guess how I was making people feel? That same fucking way.
Wow.
So it was a lot of soul searching, man. And like, now when I think about comedy, I just feel fucking guilty. I feel guilty because I got into a spot in comedy where specifically, I wouldn't say I had like a lot of power or any means like that, but I had a lot of influence. And I don't want to say I abused it, but I didn't use it the way it was supposed to be used. It's the Spider-Man Great Responsibility situation where I'm just like, yeah, I could have stopped Uncle Ben, but instead I sent that murderer to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not how the story goes, but it's way more fun to think of it
I
that
mean,
way.
kind of.
Yeah, it's like, you're just like, no, Uncle Ben, don't go to your car. You know what I mean? Like, you're 85, you shouldn't be driving. Like, that's where the responsibility really was. He should never have been driving. Then he
Right.
wouldn't have got carjacked.
Right.
It's not the wrestler, stopping the mugger. It's letting your 85-year-old grandpa.
Yeah, little known fact.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben, his license was expired.
Yeah. He couldn't even walk good. Like, and he's going to operate that Cadillac or Buick or whatever it was. No. Be responsible. Take ownership for your mistakes. And like, yeah, I made a lot. I made a lot of mistakes in comedy. And did I run a fun room at one point? Absolutely. But at some point, the fun disappeared and it became bitterness. And then that, to that comic's point, yeah, people felt a certain way. And like part of it was, ADHD and anxiety. My brain wanted to make sure that the show was always going great instead of just fucking enjoying the ride. Being loose. It's comedy. Just fucking be loose with it. It's too tight. So when I do comedy again, that'll always be in the back of my mind. Like, what's my intent? What's my impact? Do I need to say these things, or could I just quietly how could I quietly just sit there and, like, if I observe something that's fucked up, be like, hey man, maybe chill, or just look at it and go, okay, what's the intent of this person's comments? What's the impact? Are they hurting anyone? Is this imminent danger situation? And break it down to what needs to be done versus what can be done. And realize that, I don't need to be the PC police or whatever fucking bullshit I've been called before. I can still be a good person, but if I'm going to do comedy again, I'm going to do it for me.
I haven't heard it phrased that way before. Like, I've kind of heard people usually just say, what was your intention behind that? And then, it made me feel this way. But when you break it down in that intent versus impact, like,
well, it's
such a easier way of
it is and
digesting it.
Dude, life is weird.
Life is weird.
And one thing I try to tell people is titles don't fucking matter. Like, when I do jobs, when I do my help desk role and I have to interact with our senior leaders, I don't care what their job is. Because if they got fired tomorrow, their social status would be lower than mine.
I say that all the time.
So why does it fucking matter? Why should I be intimidated by this person that has stuff that I don't have?
What's
they
that?
Could very easily not have anything tomorrow.
God, I'm trying to think. Think harder. There's a saying that more or less says, when we leave here, we all have to wait in line at McDonald's.
Yeah.
To the effect, like, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
None of us are above that.
Yeah.
Or we all have,
Everybody's got to wait in line.
Yeah. But yeah, intent versus impact, and we all have to wait in line at the DMV.
Yep. Circles of influence. Are you familiar with those?
I think so.
Yeah, it's basically just two circles, right?
Oh, then no.
So there's like, think of like a big circle and a small circle. The small circle's in the middle of the big circle, and you're in the middle of the small circle.
Okay.
The thing that's in the circle are things that you can directly control.
Oh.
And the things that's in the bigger circle around your circle are the things that affect you, but you can't control. So the goal of the circles of influence is to make your small circle as big as possible.
All right. We've been doing this a while now.
I don't even know where I live anymore.
So I want to say that I love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
I appreciate you having me.
And I'm glad that you're willing to be so open. And I certainly learned some new things, and I hope folks at home learned some new things. And thank you again. And to the listeners, be well to yourselves.
Yeah, just Be your own best fan.
No, shut up, because it's over.
Oh,
now.
that's the outro?
That's my send off. I say it every episode.
Can I quietly say it and be well to yourself?